It's Monday, which means it is meal planning day at our place. And if you haven't ever meal planned before, if you've thought about it, but it's just way too overwhelming, well then today I'm going to share with you my top tips to get started with meal planning and the things that I do to make it not only work really well for our family, but also make it heaps less overwhelming, less stressful, really kind of easy to pull together, and most importantly, that actually works. And hey, if we haven't had the chance to hang out before, my name is Nikki. I'm a frugal living and family finance blogger, and I love sharing tips and tricks that help our family budget better, demolish debt, skyrocket our savings, and still have heaps of frugal fun along the way. So if that sounds like something you would be interested in, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button down below so you can stay up to date with all of my new content. I do have heaps of new videos in the works for you guys, and I'll have new stuff coming out every single week. Alright, so today we are talking meal planning, and I know that this is one of those things that has really benefited us, but I also know it was really hard to get started with. Meal planning in itself can be really overwhelming, and if you are one of those people that you've heard about others who've had heaps of success with meal planning, you've tried it yourself, but you sat down and were just completely overwhelmed by the whole experience, or for whatever reason felt that it just didn't work well for you and your family, then know that you are not alone. The first time that I tried meal planning, it was a complete disaster, and I'm pretty sure that attempts 2 and 3 probably weren't much better. But I did eventually find a system that works really well for us, helps us stay on top of our grocery budget, which is the primary reason why we actually started meal planning in the first place, but also takes the stress out of what I'm going to buy at the supermarket, what we're going to eat each night, and doesn't leave me completely overwhelmed at the end of my meal planning session. So if that sounds like something you would be interested in, stick around for this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up. That really helps me know what kind of content you guys are enjoying, what's helping, what tips you guys are finding useful, and lets me know the sorts of things that I should do future videos on. So today, let's jump in and have a look at how I meal plan. Now, I'm not actually going to show you this week's meal plan. That's going to come in a separate video. I wanted to start with the simple sequence of steps that I go through to meal plan, because when I first did it, I was doing it completely backwards. And I'm gonna guess that maybe you guys are making a few of the same mistakes that I did, which is why meal planning becomes so overwhelming. So the first thing that I actually do when I sit down to meal plan, forget the recipe books, forget taste.com and all the rest of it, I start with my diary. The first thing that I do is I actually sit down and I have a look at any activities or appointments or things coming up in that week that I need to take into consideration when I'm meal planning. Because let's be honest, if the kids have got sport and we're not going to get home until 8 o'clock at night, the last thing that I want to do is try and cook a lasagna from scratch. So sitting down with my diary and looking at our appointments for the week, our activities, what we're going to be doing, if we've got any birthdays coming up or anything like that, all of that goes on to my meal planning whiteboard before I've even put any recipes on there at all. That's step number 1. The other thing that I will do is I'll actually take a peek at the weather for the week coming up. And this might sound strange, but here's the thing. I've noticed that the weather is going to dictate not only what we feel like eating, but how I feel about cooking. So particularly in summer, particularly if we have some hot weather coming up, I know that not only am I not going to feel like cooking big hearty meals, we're also not going to feel like eating them, so there's no point putting them on the meal plan. Having a quick look at the weather, particularly if we've got a hot streak coming up, means that I know we're going to be aiming for things that are quick and easy. Maybe I can do them on the barbecue, maybe we're looking at salads, or maybe even things like wraps that are going to be quick and easy. So that is my first step. My second step is actually to go and have a look at what we already have on hand. You may have heard this before, but the number one step in your meal planning should always be shopping your fridge, freezer, and pantry first. Use up the things that you already have so that you're not doubling up and buying more. I simplify this step by not going overboard with my inventory. I'm not going to take a complete inventory of everything that we have on hand every single week. That's way too much work. But what I will do is just go and have a quick look at what we already have on hand. I'm going to note down anything that I know needs to be used up, particularly if we have some fresh produce that needs something doing with it so that it doesn't end up in the bin or the compost. The other thing that I'm going to have a look for is anything that's been hanging around in my freezer or my pantry for longer than I would like to admit. I aim to at least pick one thing that I have in my fridge, freezer, or pantry that I'm going to use up this week. That's always my goal. So step number 2, shop your fridge, freezer, and pantry first and use up the ingredients that you already have. Try to pick one meal that you can plan around the things that you already have on hand. My third step is to jump online and have a quick look at the seasonal specials at the local supermarkets. And the only thing that I'm really looking at is fresh fruit and veggies. I don't really care about the loss leaders yet at this point. I don't care what's half price in the grocery aisles. What I'm looking at is the seasonal fruits and veggies, what is on special this week, and I'm going to pick one meal that I can make around the seasonal produce. Now at this point I haven't actually written anything down on my meal planning whiteboard other than any appointments that we've got coming up or any special events that I need to be aware of. There's no meals on my meal plan yet, but what I do have is an idea of what I've already got, some things that I want to use up, and what's going to be on special at the supermarkets. Now, I don't know about you, but I think the most overwhelming thing that I can look at is a completely blank meal planning sheet. The idea of having to come up with all of those meals from scratch from the top of my head is just way too much for me to do. So my next step and my next tip is to actually get the ball rolling with one of the kids. We have a bit of a tradition at our place where we do Friday night fun night, which is where we pick something fun, basically a fake away meal. It's not takeaway. We stopped doing takeaway a couple of years ago when we were in baby step 2 and we were paying off all of our debts, and we found cheaper alternatives that we could do at home. And it's kind of stuck. The kids love Friday night fun night. They like being the ones who can pick. And what I actually do is the first thing that goes on my meal plan is, what are we going to do for Friday night fun? And I actually let one of the kids pick it. They rotate and they get to pick one each week. And so I don't even have to think about the first meal that's going to go on there. We have a list of ideas for our Friday night fun night, stuff that we like to do, and I know everyone's going to want to eat, and the kids pretty much know that off by heart. And I'm pretty sure that they're already thinking about what they're going to pick for their Friday night fun night when it's their turn, well before meal planning day rocks around. So all I have to do is find out whose turn it is to pick this week and ask them what do they want to do for Friday night fun, and that goes on the list. The next meal I go ahead and lock in is a use it up or a leftovers night. I only actually plan out 6 meals each week because we always seem to have a little bit of excess. So the second meal that I go ahead and lock in every single week is some kind of either use it up meal. So we might be doing our family favorite use it up omelets, or we might be doing a leftover night. We might even do something like catch and kill, which is basically a get your own dinner night where each person is just responsible for finding something to eat and making it happen. The next thing I do is have a look at those activities and things that we have going on during the week, and I will mark down any nights that I need to come up with an on-the-go dinner. So those dinners that we want to be quick and easy, where I don't have a lot of time to be in the kitchen, and I may be picking from either a freezer meal that's ready to go in the freezer that's pre-prepared, or something that is quick and easy to pull together so that we can either eat quickly in a hurry because we're going to go out to something, or we've come back from a big day and nobody really feels like cooking. I'm going to go ahead and lock those in our meal plan and see how many dinners I actually have left that I have to think about. So at this point, we've already locked in our Friday night fun night, we've locked in a use it up night, and we've looked at our on the go nights. Now I want to head back to my inventory and look at the things that I wanted to use up, and also look at what's going to be on special this week at the supermarkets. And I want to try and pick one meal that's going to firstly use up some things that we already have at home, and then secondly, I want to pick another meal that's going to capitalize on whatever is on special this week at the supermarkets. Now, with those specials at the supermarket, one of the things that I am taking into consideration is how well that produce is going to freeze. Is it something that I'm going to be able to use, make a bulk meal out of, and perhaps get some freezer ready meals for those on the go nights? Maybe I can make a soup or a stew or some sort of meal that's going to freeze well. Or are we talking about our summertime produce that perhaps doesn't really freeze well, but maybe I can get 1 or 2 nights out of that produce and have fresh ingredients that I know I'm going to want to use up early in my meal plan. If I do have a lot of salad stuff or produce that I want to use up early that I'm only going to get a couple of days out of, I'm going to make sure that I put those meals closer to my shopping day and not towards the end of my meal planning week. Alright, so at this point, I really just need to fill in the days that are left. And some weeks there are more meals left to fill in than others. If it's a really busy week and we have lots of on-the-go dinners, then I might not really have to come up with very much at all. If it's a slower week and I've got more time to cook at home, then I'm going to be thinking about how I can best fill in those meals that are left. Now at this point, I like to focus on my bases when it comes to making sure I have a little bit of variety in our meal plan. I find with a lot of the recipes that I can cook, I can often swap out the proteins or the meats. So for example, if I'm going to make a risotto, it doesn't really matter if I use chicken breast or chicken thigh fillets or even a mince. A chicken or a turkey mince would be completely interchangeable. The one thing that I don't want to end up doing is finding out that I've actually got 5 rice meals, for example, that week. I think that would be too rice heavy for our family, but I don't mind if I have, say, 3 different chicken dishes. What I want to try and do is make sure that I have 1 pasta dish, 1 rice dish, and 1 vegetable based dish. And here's another little tip for you. I actually really like to keep my options open when I'm meal planning. So I will often just simply meal plan something like chicken and vegetables. But exactly what type of veggies and how I cook the chicken can be something that I can decide either when I'm at the supermarket and I'm looking at what's on special and what's marked down, or I could even choose those things on the night in question. It doesn't really matter. The important thing is that I'm not locked into doing something. I have a little bit of flexibility and variety. The other thing that I will say to you guys too is don't feel like you have to cook what you've planned on each night. Oops, that didn't make sense. Give yourself a little bit of flexibility. If you want to swap out your Friday night for your Tuesday night, it doesn't really matter as long as you have 7 meals planned for the week. It really doesn't matter what night you eat them on. Alright, so let's recap those steps so far. First of all, I start with my calendar. I start with my diary and I have a look at any appointments or activities that we have coming up or events that might impact our meal plan and also my ability to be able to cook. The second thing that I always do is I shop the fridge, freezer and pantry first, and I always aim to use up something that we already have. Third was to check out those weekly specials in the produce aisle and pick one meal based around what's on season right now and what you can get your hands on for a really good deal. And fourth, don't start with that overwhelming blank white sheet. Start filling in your meal plan with those easy to pick things. Even hand the first choice over to somebody else, like one of your kids. Lock in a fun night, lock in a leftover night, and then all of a sudden you only have to pick 5 out of 7 meals anyways. So it's not quite so overwhelming. And now we're going to tackle what's left. Remember, after you've done your fun night, your leftover night, and you filled in any on-the-go meals, you want to also be thinking about what can you use up from your inventory that you already have and pick one meal based around that, and try to capitalize on whatever is in season at the moment that's on special that you can get really cheap and pick one meal around that. Now, if you have, say, one event or appointment or something on this week and you're going to do one on the go meal, at this point you've done one on the go, a Friday night fun, a leftover night, something from the inventory that you already have, something that's on special. You've already done 5. You've only got 2 more left to pick. At this point, I like to try and pick something that's frugal, that I can make really cheap, and also include something new and fun. So we do one frugal and one fancy and fun. Picking something new is a great way to sort of break out of that rut of eating the same things all the time. It allows you to experiment perhaps with some new ingredients or try out something that you've seen on Pinterest or Instagram, but you're not trying to pick 7 entire meals from scratch. All right, some extra tips for you guys that you might find helpful as well. One of the things that I realized a couple of years ago is that in summer, I don't really feel like cooking very much. So I know that I need to plan lots of salads and barbecues and even pick plates and things that are going to be easy to pull together without much effort. We're out and about, we're active a lot more, it's a lot hotter, and nobody really feels like slaving away at the kitchen stove on a 40-degree day. During autumn and winter and spring, however, I definitely get the cooking bug back. I do enjoy cooking, but I don't necessarily want to have to cook dinner every single night. So one of the things that I like to do during autumn, winter, and spring is look at meals that I can make as a bulk or a batch meal. Which means basically, what is a recipe that I can double and make one for that night and then also put one in the freezer. And the other thing is, don't overthink it or overanalyze it. I know that I have been guilty of this, and it definitely seems to be one of the things that comes up when I talk to you guys about meal planning and the struggles that you have. I hear a lot how hard it is to meal plan because you're worried about the variety, or you're worried that you're not covering your bases properly. You haven't included enough vegetables or different proteins, or what if you've got 2 pasta dishes, or you've got a pasta and a rice and you don't have a... Just hold up a sec, guys, because here's what I want to say to you. If you are cooking without a meal plan, in that you're shopping each week but you're just deciding what you're going to cook each night for dinner, at no point are we really thinking about the meal that we're going to make tonight compared to perhaps what we made earlier in the week. For example, when we sit down and decide what we're going to cook on Friday, we're not really thinking about what we cooked on Monday and Tuesday and whether or not the whole thing balances in the big scheme of things. I get that it's totally different when it's written out on paper and you're looking at as a whole week of what you're eating. But the reality is that when we plan meal to meal, in that we're planning at the fridge when we're standing and it's dinner time and we're trying to work out what we're going to eat, we're not really taking into consideration much more than perhaps what we have left and what we had last night. So don't stress too much about making sure that your meal plan is nutritionally approved by a nutritionist. Basically, if you guys are making sure that you're eating some fresh fruit and veg, you've got some protein, you've got some grains, you've covered your bases that way, you're good to go. Also, disclaimer, I'm not a nutritionist. Alright, and my final tip, this one really did make a difference for me when I started meal planning, is to start keeping a list of things that you know that your family enjoys. But I have an extra tip to go with that tip, and that is, don't try to sit down and write an entire list of meals that your family enjoys right from the get-go. I tried to do this and it was a complete failure because I completely blanked on anything that my family liked to eat. In fact, I was sitting there wondering if we like to eat anything at all because I honestly couldn't remember the types of meals that we enjoy eating. Rather, what I'd suggest to you is to keep a notebook and over a couple of months, just jot down the things that you have made, that your family's enjoyed and that you like. And as ideas come to you, keep your list growing. That's what I did, and it made things so much easier. Eventually, I took my notebook and created a spreadsheet so that now when I sit down and I get that complete blank and I have no idea what to cook, I can sit down and have a look at this master list of meals that I know that my family has enjoyed. Eventually, I ended up adding all of those meal ideas into a spreadsheet, and I categorized it with like meals together. So I now have a list of pasta-based meals, rice-based meals, frugal meal ideas, fancy meal ideas, of course, a big list of Friday night fun meals, and so on. So now anytime that I get stuck for inspiration, I can just head to our family's master list of meal ideas. All right, so there you have it. That is basically the strategy behind how I meal plan. If you want to see my meal planning strategy in action, you can check out this video to walk you through what I'm actually going to meal plan for the week ahead. And of course, if you found this video useful, if you liked it, if you picked up a couple of tips, if you could give it a thumbs up, I would really appreciate that. And while you're there, why don't you let me know in the comments what's on the menu at your place this week? If you haven't dived into meal planning yet, if it's still a little bit too overwhelming, or you're just not quite ready to tackle meal planning, I'd love to hear from you. So let me know what you're struggling with. What is it about meal planning that you find really difficult? And I will try to do a video with some more tips to cover those things for you. If you liked this video and you want to hang out some more, you can come and find me over on Instagram and Facebook. I'm there at Nikki Beale, and I would love to get to know you a little bit better. If you do pop over, don't forget to say good day and let me know how you're going with your meal planning. I'd love to hear from you.